when you hire people before, you were trying to always, as a company, you always try and inspire loyalty. You try and almost buy loyalty in some cases by having a fancy pantry, and some companies offer massages and all of that kind of stuff, right? But now what we're seeing is that the Gen Zs of the world, they're less about salary. Salary is still important, but they're more about experience. What they care about more so is the experience that they're going to have, the people they're going to work with, the impact that they have to the larger world and to the organization and all of that, right? So if you think about that mindset, it's super cool, because that doesn't really lend itself to a contract role versus a full-time role. It lends itself to being fulfilled in their objectives, doing something meaningful, contributing where it's real value, not perception of value, right? So I think I'm quite encouraged by that aspect of the Gen Zs, right? That they want to take that on. They want to do something which they feel proud about, right? And salary is one component of it, but that's not where it stops.
Right. And you mentioned earlier on, I mean, this is off air as well, that the Gen Zs, I mean, that trend in itself is going to be so unique because they are born into technology.
Yeah.
Like the big difference is that Gen X had very little technology, right? Considering it's like the steam engine, that was when it starts, industrialization, so on and so forth. Gen Ys or millennials are kind of half-half. We saw the transition of technology, or the birth of technologies as we know it today, and Gen Zs on the other hand they've got everything at their fingertips.
They're used to it. That's how they want it.
So how does that make them so unique in the tech world now?
One thing for sure is that Gen Zs, so again, going back to older generations, they used to solve problems by themselves, and when they couldn't find it, they try and find a degree of automation or software to solve it. Gen Zs start with software first, right? They start thinking about solving problems using an app or using a certain piece of software or productivity tool or whatever else it is, right? So they're wired that way, and so what that means is their general bar of what they bring to the workplace is much higher. They're not folks who get worried about new software coming in, artificial intelligence, etc., that could displace their jobs. That's the starting point for their jobs. So I think it's overall the way that us as a human race should be progressing, right? Where people establish or assume a certain norm and then they build from there. So I think that's where I see the difference in how Gen Zs work.
Right. Okay, that's really interesting. I mean, I've had numerous conversations, right, with people with different generations about this, and as much as I see that, yes, the technology is there, they'll be able to just know, they're so resourceful with it, they can find anything and everything, right? The only challenge is the relationship aspect of things, the soft skills of things, because technology technically has no feelings. If you wanted to do that, so technically, if you're born into technology, we gotta put a little bit more emphasis on the soft skills, communications, and becoming human again. Strangely enough, right? Do you see that as a challenge if you were to hire a younger generation of techies?
Honestly, what I see so far is that they're connected to their own ecosystem, but they've built their own ecosystem very quickly. They know who they want to engage with, how they want to engage. They've got very clear role templating in their head, at least based on my interactions.
Role templating, what is that?
In the sense that, if I've got work, I've got work, I've got play. Mixing the two, while it would happen more so with previous generations, I think it happens almost lesser with this generation to a certain extent.
Yeah, that's interesting. And now that you bring it up, I like to play at work. I want my work to feel like play. I don't want it to be like, 9 o'clock, I'm going to slog, and all of a sudden I'm a different person from who I am after 6.
And I think if you see a lot of the wisdom that people are talking about, there's a lot of people who are in their 30s and their 40s who talk about that intertwined ability to say, work-life balance, it's about balancing at work, it's about balancing with your life. But what I see, at least my 2 cents of experience so far, is that the younger generation sees it as a shut off and a shut on, and for them it's mutually exclusive. So when things shut off at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock or whenever they wind down for the day, then they're done, right? And let's not intertwine that any further than that. Let's pick it up the next morning.